Hello, beautiful people. How are you all today? It's good to see you live again. And if you happen to see me live, please say hi, say who you are. I would love to meet those of you who I don't know, and of course, those of you who I know already. And if you have never met me before, if that's the first time, that you see me live or that you find this video on a replay. My name is Natalia. I'm an inner mastery and consciousness mentor. And if you happen to see this video on a replay, please also hashtag replay and let me know that you are watching and let me know who you are and where you are from. And also, if any of you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them underneath this video. I love reading those, and of course, I respond to some of your questions and some of your comments where you ask for clarification of anything that I mentioned in the video and which has not been clear or which has where you still have additional questions. So today we'll have a very important topic, as probably every topic that I talk about. But today I'll talk about specifically what is ego and the way to transcend it. Because many people are using the word ego nowadays, and there is still not not a lot of clarity what exactly it is and what, to which extent, to which depths it goes, because ego is simple to understand when you are completely free from it. But if you still have a certain aspects of ego, of egoic identity, you simply will not be able to see them. And you will speak of ego only from the position where you are, from the position of your consciousness where you are. So, so today I'll explain to you what it is, and I will share with you also my personal experience of going through various stages where which took me to be completely free from ego. So essentially, what is ego? Ego is our personal identity. It's a personalized consciousness. And the way it's created, the roots of its creation, it starts from the childhood when so the consciousness that we say, I am the body. We identify ourselves with the body. And that is the original starting point of creation of ego. So we identify ourselves with the body, and then the body function, the mechanism of the body functions through the sensory perceptions. Yeah. So as a child, you explore the world, you touch things, you smell things, you taste things, and then you say, well, I like it, or I don't like it, or I want this, I want that. So slowly you gather sensory information from the surroundings about the world and about yourself. So let's say you are in a certain family, and this family is telling you, well, okay, we are English. Yeah, so this is your nationality, you are English, or this is your social status, you are of a certain class, or you are of a certain religious background. You're Christian, you're Muslim, you are this, you are that. So slowly, 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 you gather these patterns, this information about yourself, and you start identifying with this information. Yes, I am this, yes, I'm that. And then it goes deeper. Then it goes deeper into the ways of the behavior of your mother and your father, and the emotions they express to you or in front of you. Yeah, um, so if, for example, if there was a household where there was not enough love, that is the memory that is recorded in you, because your brain processes sensory information and records it. So this information is recorded in you, and then you say, well, I am I am not loved. Yeah, so you you unconsciously, because most of the memory goes in your subconscious mind, so you are not aware of that. But for example, in this example, which is example of so many people, uh, that where there has been an emotional identification based on the past experience, where you say, I am not loved enough, and that forms a part of your identity. Now, the more information you gather, the more your brain records it as memory, and the more you grow in your personal identity. Yeah, is that clear? So essentially, your personal identity or your ego is past memory. Yeah, that is stored in your various levels of your conscious mind, of your subconscious mind, in your energy system. It's all stored there. And then you create a notion of I. Yeah, so this is I, and then because there is I, everything is you. Yeah, so as long as I exist, you exist. So that is how ego is formed. So ego does not mean that something, when people assert themselves as good, as superior, it does not mean that. Ego can take various shapes. You can you can feel superior to others, I am so good, or you can feel inferior to others. You can feel I'm not good enough. You can feel any other ways. For example, if you start with the personal development, if any of you has been, for example, with Tony Robbins, you come to his sessions, Unleash the Power Within, and that's what they teach you. They teach you, like, look at your identity, look what you think about yourself, and then if it's not good, because of course, if you come to self-improvement, it already means that deep inside you think that you are not good enough. And then you create a different, a new identity where you will cultivate new beliefs, that you are great, that you are capable, that you are the best, and so on and so forth. So basically, what you are doing here, you are substituting ego, which feels inferior, to ego which feels superior. Yeah, same ego, but in a different way, in a different shape. Another example: if you go to spirituality, then you start to develop spiritual ego, and that is that is not so easily recognizable for all the spiritual people, because they start to cultivate that identity of I am spiritual, I am more evolved, I'm better than anyone else. um, then they claim to have any supernatural capacities, and so on and so forth. So this is another type of ego. It can have so many faces, which is why we can say that ego is unconsciousness in you, and it cannot see itself. It cannot see itself. And the biggest fear for your ego is actually to be seen and exposed. So, how do you transcend the ego? How do you go beyond it? How can you be free from that? Now, first of all, stop fighting with the ego. I hear this so many times. I'm destroying my ego. Don't do that, because the one that wants to destroy the ego is ego itself. So if you are doing that, stop it immediately, because you will be like a dog chasing its own tail. And the only where it will lead you to is exhaustion and frustration and depression, because you will be going round and round and round in circles. And this is a mistake so many people on the spiritual path are doing when they are not getting the guidance, and especially when they are working by themselves. And which is why you cannot work on yourself by yourself, meaning you cannot work by yourself without the guidance, because your ego cannot see itself, and it will lead you in all sorts of direction and persuade you that you are already great, that you don't need anything. It can play for these things, and it's a very cunning entity. It is an intelligent entity. And if it would be so easy to transcend the ego, everyone would be already Buddhas. You would have Buddhas walking around, but unfortunately there are very few Buddhas walking around. Very few. The rest are still immersed to a certain degree in their personal identity or their ego. Now, how do you transcend it? How do you go beyond it? Well, first and foremost, you need to realize the essence that you are. Because as long as you believe yourself to be someone, or as long as you identify yourself as anything, ego will exist. So, realization of your essence is an act of surrendering of I. And that realization is when you see clearly that I as a concept, as collection of your memory, does not exist. That it exists only because you identified yourself with the past memory. You identified yourself with the beliefs that you have. You identified yourself with your thoughts. You identified yourself with the emotions. Yeah. So that's how your ego persists through past memory that creates certain emotions in you, and that creates certain thoughts in you, and that also is supported by certain beliefs, and is also supported by a certain tendencies, mental and emotional tendencies, that you, how you think, how you act, and so the flow of your personal consciousness, where you are, the way you see yourself, and the way you see the world. So once you realize the essence, and what is your essence? Your essence is nothing, no thing, no thing. Once you realize no thing, immediately you see the illusory nature of your identity. You will see that your identity was simply your own creation. You created your identity by believing certain things, by identifying with a past memory, by thinking certain things, and by producing certain emotions on a regular basis. It's all forms part of your identity. So seeing through that I does not exist, you transcend the structures of your egoic identity. Now, seeing is surrendering the I. Now, I know again there is also a very popular thing in the spiritual circles to talk about surrender. To do surrender, you have to surrender yourself. You cannot surrender yourself, because the one who will be surrendering yourself is your ego, because it does not exist, so it cannot be surrendered. Its unreality needs to be realized. That's what needs to happen. And I hope this video will, for some of you, will strike something in you, so you will be able to see that, or to see that more clearly. So seeing is breaking identification with I. Now, when this seeing is profound and deep enough, most of the structures of your egoic identity start to dissolve themselves. You can do things to speed up the process, you can do the practices, you can work with a teacher, and I do recommend that you do all of that, because it takes a long period of integration after that realization happens. But that does not mean that after realization all the structures, all your egoic structures are gone. Even after such a profound realization, or self-realization as it's called, there are maybe half of the egoic structures are gone, but there are a lot of things that still remain, which is why I say there is an integration process that you need to go through to integrate more deeply, to embody the essence that you are more deeply. Now, then you enter the process where, well, so-called, they call it in the spiritual circles, well, the ego is seen, for example, that it's easier for you to identify ego and identify the personal tendencies, or and but what happens then in the integration process to completely transcend the ego, all of that is arising in you, and what is arising in you, the thoughts and emotions, they need to be integrated backward into the essence that you are. Or, in other words, you need to see through all the tendencies, and at this point of time, your ego can be very subtle as well. For example, like this is a case with a lot of spiritual people where they have this realization, but when what happens, that ego jumps on this realization, and then it starts to say, well, I am actually enlightened, I am very evolved, I'm a super evolved, I'm better than you. Then you start teaching others and telling them how they should improve themselves, how they are less evolved than you are, all of that. And it can be very subtle. Or, of course, for you it will be subtle because as I said, ego cannot see itself. Now, another way how it can play at this stage, it can say, well, I am divine. And if you see many spiritual people, they start dressing up in all the divine things, saying that they are a goddess or divine feminine, divine masculine, and all of that. This is, my dears, is ego as well. If you are listening to that, and you will surely not like that, if that applies to you, but that is ego as well. It's just transferred into the spiritual and divine form. Now, one of the ways I can share with you, one of the ways where you can see whether or not there is ego is the way you react. All your emotional reactions and triggers are a sign that there is something or someone that is triggered, or that is offended, or that is emotional. So a very good identification. If you are still getting hurt and offended by someone, I mean, I'm talking about if someone verbally insults you and you get hurt, there is still a self-image in you. Yeah. Now, what happens is, then the self-image, well, you see, for example, that I as a ego does not exist, but then there is a tendency of your mind to create a self-image, which is why it's creating the image of I am consciousness, or I am divine, I am the whole of existence, whatever image. So as long as you within yourself have any image of yourself, that is still a very, 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 can be very subtle ego. Now, finally, you transcend ego only when you go through the level of death. And that may be a little bit too advanced for some of you, but when you are realizing the essence that you are, you realize you're being. Yeah, and being has a certain, it's not ego, but it has a certain identity. And there are a lot of things that are still arising in you as part of the old blueprints, egoic blueprints and structures. Many things that are arising in you. And that's the process that you need to go through from self-realization unto the enlightenment or final realization, or whatever you want to call it. So that is the journeying from being to non-being. And non-being, when any kind of self-image, any identification starts to dissolve. So you, in other words, you go into the deeper layers of nothing. And that's what happens finally in the stage of enlightenment, when your ego finally dies completely, is that you have no self-image left. And there is no anymore egoic structures arising. No thoughts, no emotions, no desires, no wishing, no hoping, no wanting. You have been completely emptied. You meaning your body has been completely emptied of all of that. So at that point of time, you are completely free. You are free from your ego, you are free from the cycle of death and rebirth, you are free from the human condition. You are absolutely and totally free. And that is the final stage, when you complete the circle, going from the egoic identity, coming back into just being the body as an event with no identification inside, being simply a body, and you don't exist as anything. So no self-image. The self-image completely dissolves. And that is the ultimate freedom. So if you are someone who is ready, or who feels, because these things you know yourself, if you are here for the ultimate freedom, if you want to be completely free from all of that, if that's what your life is for, that is the state where you are going. And if that's your deepest wish in your heart, it's gonna happen for you, of course, because ultimately everyone gets what they want, for which is why to completely transcend the ego is not for everyone, because a lot of people just happy to stay in the spiritual identity for their life, because they just like to be spiritual, they like to dress all these spiritual clothes, they like to change their names into something fairy or Indian or whatever it is. Nothing wrong with anything. As I said, everyone gets what he or she wants, and many people, that's what they want, so that's what they get. but I'm showing you the process of transcending, transcending ego, transcending your identity, and eventually becoming absolutely and totally free. Okay, that would be all for today. Thank you so much for being with me. If you find this video on my YouTube channel, please subscribe for more content like this. And please, wherever you find this video, feel free to share it and make it available for more people who may benefit from listening and watching it. And if you are someone who wants to embody your highest human possibility, if you are someone who is dedicated to freedom and who wants to be free from human condition, free from ego, free from any problems in your existence, send me a message. I would love to meet you and have a chat with you. And please keep an eye on the upcoming events this month. It's going to be something special soon. So thank you so much once again for being with me. If you have any questions or comments, please put them underneath this video. And I look forward to seeing you soon.